Hello and welcome to Politically Incorrect Knitters. My name is Ann Pinkava, joined as always by the lovely Deplorable Knitter. And we have a very special guest today, Katie Roome of, oh no, I'm going to do it, Periapsis Press?
Periapsis.
Periapsis. See, I got it wrong.
That's
Periapsis Press.
okay. Before we get to Katie from Periapsis Press, let me tell you about our sponsor. We are sponsored by Chicken Lady Fiber Arts. She has fabulous yarn like this beautiful blackety black that we could use in the Puritanical Knitting Fun Run if you choose to. It's a beautiful skein of yarn. She does all kinds of beautiful stuff. And if you want something like this, you can use the code PIZZA20 PIK for 20% off. And Anne has the giveaway.
This is marvelous. And you can enter by commenting below.
Yes. And Claudia Kyle, you were the September winner. Please email me at deplorableknitter@yahoo.com so I can mail you your ornament kit. You can get going on your Christmas knitting. So now that we've got our business out of the way, we are joined by Katie. And for all the people watching who haven't come across you before, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Katie Roome, and my website is periapsispress.com. It is a review site. So I review indie sci-fi and fantasy.
Well, this is one of the things that I really like about your website and your YouTube channel is that we have the quote Iron Age, all of these new independent authors and loosely conservative authors. That's kind of the gist of the movement, that they want to write what people want to read, and a lot of the mainstream press is not giving the people what they want to read. But I love how you come into all of this, because if you have all of these new authors that nobody's heard of, not a lot of people have bought their books, and no one's given them reviews. And how can anyone succeed if you can't look at the good reviews, and if there isn't a group of people who are willing to talk about whatever the book is? So I think I love it. It's a very practical angle, and one that anyone can contribute to.
Yes, absolutely. I started my website. I'm a reader, right? I'm not an author myself. My husband started writing and decided to publish indie. In 2019, I think his first book came out, and we realized that there wasn't any like network or platform where people could go to find indie stuff that was of quality, right? There's lots of bloggers and booktube and stuff, but they generally post like whatever they've read, and a lot of my TBR or whatever, and not a lot of focused reviews. So my stuff is all positive. It's only stuff that I liked, and it's all long form. Like, I go into detail, so you know that I actually liked, and you know what I liked, and you can see if those things match up with what you're looking for. And then the other part of the website is that you can browse just by book cover. A lot of review sites don't have that functionality because it's a blog, right? And blogs are linked, they're list sort of format, and then you can search stuff, but it's hard to browse. So I made sure that my site had a spoiler-free way to browse stuff. And then
kind of almost a Netflix style browsing.
Yeah.
You can just see the main splash picture, be like, yes, no.
Right. Yep. And the positive only comes into play with that browsing, right? I liked it. You know absolutely that I would recommend this book just looking at the cover, and you don't have to go into detail on it.
So that's interesting to me. So if you read a book and you think it's a steaming pile of trash, you just move along and you don't ever tell anybody that you read it?
Pretty much.
See, that's quite ladylike of you, Katie. Ripping into things is quite fun. You should try it sometime.
That's the thing. There's so much content generated out of disliking things. There's a lot of conservative talking heads who talk about why mainstream media, movies, books, stuff like that is bad. And we don't really need an indie alternative to that, right? You don't really need to find the bad indie books. You need to help finding the good stuff.
That's the point.
When we're browsing like Amazon as a reader, you look at like how many reviews and whether it has 4 or 5 stars. But if you are looking at a particular book, you look at the reviews to see, should I read this? But Amazon isn't really good for looking for anything, right? Open-ended. I want something to read. Is there something that looks interesting? Because there's so much junk, right? There's bad books, there's erotica, which somehow gets into every genre. There's
Everything.
It's
horrifying.
And what you end up with is just way too much stuff to go through yourself when all you really want is someone to say, yes, I liked this. And here's a list of things that I liked. And if you feel like your tastes align, you can pick anything, right? So that's where my vision came from.
So you stick mainly with sci-fi, you said, and fantasy.
Sci-fi fantasy, yep.
Is there a reason? Is it just because that's your preferred genre, or is it
that's my preference?
That's what a lot of these people are doing?
There's a lot of indies doing sci-fi fantasy right now. I would say probably most of the Iron Age crowd is doing some form of imaginative fiction.
And I would not to interject, but
yeah,
the Iron Age crowd is a masculine heavy crowd. They just are. And what do men really like to read? There's going to be a lot of sci-fi, and also I think men are more likely to be conservative than women, but also they're more likely to say like, no, I'm sick of this crap. I'm done. I'm not going to play these games. So to have their sort of own genre for that, I think is very helpful.
Yeah, the men in general have been poorly served by TradPub for a very, very long time. They make up 25 to 35% of modern audiences, and for books particularly. And so TradPub considers them a small percentage. And so they don't make books that appeal to men. Part of it is that men read a lot of nonfiction. And so if they're going to be reaching for fiction, it just tends to be kind of like action adventure type stuff. And they have a few big names that have been like publishing the same book in different formats over and over and over. And they figure they're well served by that. And the problem is that TradPub in general has become more and more obvious, overplaying their hand with their political and like ideals. So
how many more lesbian girl bosses can you possibly get?
And like you said, like men are just less likely to spend the time once they decide, yeah, this isn't for me. But on the other hand, men have also been told for a long time that reading isn't for them. Right. From like high school, right? They assign books that just do not appeal to, especially in particular to young boys. People in general are turned off by literature all the time. And then as adults, they're told by other people in their lives, like, you need to be working and doing things that are constructive as opposed to sitting back and enjoying a fiction book. There's like approved kinds of entertainment, like football, but what ends up happening, especially coming out of like the pandemic and with the shutdowns, a lot of men who were all like already in that sort of trad pub's not for me, decided to try it themselves. And so what we're seeing with the Iron Age is like the result of that.
That's really interesting. And I never really thought about it, but last summer my kids and I built a little free library that we put down at a community park we have. And now that you say it, like the books that are in there for men are like, John Grisham or like history, like, oh, here's a naval battle. And then you get like all the stuff that women want to read. And it's like all of these authors that everybody's heard of. There's all tons of them. But if like, I stopped down there because my stepdad loves to read historical stuff. He's really, really into it. So I'm always looking at what we have, and it's either like here's a book about a war story or a romance, and there's like not a lot. I never thought about it though until you just said that, and it's true. Like you're going to read John Grisham, you're going to read a war book, or it's not for you,
Right?
Which is kind of crazy.
It is, and the thing about indie publishing is that those niche markets can be met, right? People who do not fall in those giant, like, yeah, I want to read a war story, right? Like people who would like to read something that is meant for them, but is in a different genre, different, with different tropes, different expectations, they can be written for and delivered to, because there's no bar. The bar is low, right? With trad pub, they are pinning their hopes on books, and the big ones sell, right? They know that those sell. Smaller ones, niche markets, you really have to do person to person type marketing that is better for indies anyway.
Right. A friend of mine, she wanted to get a book website together for both authors and readers. So we went around and last year and we talked to different bookshops, which was fascinating, especially the ones that did give us the time of day and which didn't. But it was always very interesting to be like, okay, this sells, this is important, this isn't important. One of them, it was a very feminist bookstore, and she was talking to us and she's like, no, this works. And then when we were talking to her about independent authors, she was so cynical that she's like, no, if it's an independent author, it's more expensive for me and I have to talk it up and I don't do it. And, it's so much of my time and I won't do it. So I'll just buy the regular, gay novel of whatever. Like, and I hate to say that, but that's what the entire rack was in the front. And it's like, no, this is feminist theory and it's a feminist bookshop. It's what you'd expect. But we talked to another guy, and I don't know if you've heard of the Realm Makers group.
Yeah.
But it was his bookshop, the guy who had set up. And he was talking about, no, people want quality. People want to feel that they're paying for something good. They want that. And you have to talk it up that way. You can't be like, oh, well, it's okay. Like if you only want to pay $2, that's fine. You have to like actually invest in paper as well as, good writing skill. And sorry, that's just taking it a total aside, but just the two different mentalities of do what's easy, and then if it doesn't sell, get it shipped back. Or the other guy who was like, I don't ship anything back ever, and that's how I get better deals on stuff, and that helps my overhead.
Yeah, sure. Well,
anyways.
the problem is that easy way it's crumbling. And the reason is that people are no longer trusting TradPub to be that marker of quality, right? Like it used to be, if something is traditionally published, it means that it has gone through rigorous editing, and there is a expectation that it's going to be good, and you're not even going to have to think about it, right? At no point is the quality of the product going to interrupt your entertainment. And that just isn't true anymore, because they have sacrificed that quality for their ideology. More and more, they are reaching for authors who have the pedigree, right? The list of the list of virtue signaling, right? Of victim mentality, victim labels, that they can say, we have a diverse group of authors, whether or not they write good books, right? If you are querying right now, pretty much everybody either wants authors who are LGBT or are writing LGBT. And that's why bookshelves in official bookstores are chock full of that stuff right now.
Yeah. Every time I open my library app, it wants me to read Red, White, and Royal Blue, which has got two guys on the cover. And I like, the thing that I hate most about that is that if you have a character that it fits in with the story and it makes sense to have, then by all means put that character in. But now I was reading some book, and like 3/4 of the way in, they had a gay couple just so that they could like check the box. And I'm like, but they didn't add anything to the story. There's no point to it. Like, and yeah.
Or you'll have characters halfway through the story and we're like, by the way, we want to tell you this character is super gay and that's why he can't get together with the main girl. I'm like, it's okay if he doesn't get together with the main girl. It's like super gay. Like, well, thanks for telling me. I know what gay is. Thank you. I've been informed. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just frustrating.
Part of it too, and like in particular, when you have two guys kissing on the front, or two guys who are very, very close on the front of the cover, BL or boys love sells with women. So it's not just that they're catering to an audience that is like very, very small. It's just that it sells with women, and they think that women are their audience, right? And that's so they just pump out whatever women will read.
Fair enough. I don't know. It's sort of like when guys are like lesbians, hot, and like really just
right. Yeah, but that's exactly what
they don't read that way, strangely enough. But, sorry.
So if you're not into that kind of thing, right? Where do you go? You go
exactly.
to indie.
And also that even though that kind of thing, if you want a straight romance, but not even if you want a straight romance, it's now even become more niche. It's like, I just want a guy and he saves the day and then he gets the beautiful woman. And he's actually a good guy. He's not like secretly a bad guy or any of that. He actually wants to do good things and then he accomplishes those good things and he gets the girl at the end. Mm-hmm. That is considered more of a niche interest now, weirdly enough.
Well, and like that's like basic plot stuff, right? We should be able to get that. One story that's really good, Bloodbane. This one's by TJ Marquis. Main character is a father figure. His family only shows up at the very, very end, right? Wonderful, wonderful thing is that when his family is referenced, it's positively. His relationship with his wife and teenage daughter is all positive. They love him. He loves them. There's no struggle in their marriage. They're not going to get divorced. They're not separated. The book just fell off the shelf over there. I'm getting too animated, guys. There isn't some giant problem in their relationship that's going to be somehow solved by learning a lesson from saving the world, right? Like, no, it's like he wants to get back to his family, so he saves the world, and then he gets back with his family and everything is good, right? Like there's no nihilistic, like, no, actually you'll still have problems at the end, right? Like, no, like, it's just, can we just have a nice story, right? And that one delivers that very, very well.
Right. And I know that there's a lot of times where people talk about fridging, that they just like kill the, that they kill the girl so the guy has motivation. And they're like, okay, like I I get I totally understand having that in your story, but
Yeah.
there are so many times in books or films where it's like, and this is a nice, happy family. Oh no,
Right.
it will not this will not end well for anyone. It's like, couldn't it once though? Oh, he's meeting somebody else. They're going to be super dead soon. If somebody could escape, I'd be so happy.
Yeah, it's come to the point where if you read two characters who are have genuine feelings for one another, whether it is a romantic relationship or a friendship or a mentor relationship, if they have genuine care for one another, one of them's going to die and you know it, right?
And quickly too, every time. They're almost like MacGyver friends that you're like, hey, it's my old buddy from back then. Oh no, something's going to go horribly wrong because it has to because it's MacGyver. It's like, can can we have happiness for like a full 15 minutes? That'd be really great. I'm not saying that, I mean, there is a plot to move on. I get you. I'm here, you're here. We understand that. But it's like, could they live?
Right.
That's just
And
needlessly tragic.
yep, needlessly tragic in a way that's supposed to make you feel that the book has some sort of greater importance, right? Like,
Yeah.
something about like making you feel things is supposed to elevate genre fiction into literature somehow.
This is getting into movie realms, but I don't know if you saw the third Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Oh gosh, now I'm not remembering which ones I've seen and which ones I haven't.
Oh,
Did it
it's
come out
okay. It came
since?
out like in the last year.
Okay, then no.
Okay, so Marvel, I'm like, no, I'm not playing this. But this entire movie, people walked out like, it's so tragic. I'm like, no, it made you feel something in a way that it was like, it just broke my nose. It's like, well, this is really meaningful because it's really sad. And I'm like, you just killed a bunny rabbit. Like, what's, of course I'm sad. You just did this. Why did you have to do that? And it's like, oh, it's really meaningful and deep. It's like, no, it
Right.
isn't. This
No,
isn't
it's
good
not.
writing. This is just, shock and
Cheap
tragedy.
shots.
Yeah, it's like you're just making me feel things because that is the natural reaction. These characters aren't doing meaningful things.
Right.
Your plot, you just
But
reoriented your entire story around this thing that you shoehorned
exactly.
in later.
Think if you didn't have that tragic event, people walking out of the movie would be like, well, that was a good movie, and then they would move on with their lives, right? Like, or they'd be like, well, that was a mediocre movie, right? Like,
Right.
knowing Marvel these days,
Yeah, unfortunately.
it's
But
it's they have to yank you around by the nose in order to put you in the position that they want you in, of believing that there's some deeper meaning.
right. And I was talking, it was a teenage girl. Sorry. I was talking with her and she's like, how could you not like that movie? I cried like 4 times. And I'm like, yeah,
You want to cry.
you'd cry. That doesn't mean it meant anything.
Yeah.
Like that's not. Oh, anyway, sorry. It's just my frustration with that. But yeah, I feel a lot of that when it comes to modern writing and tragedy. And isn't this meaningful? Isn't this something? I'm like, no, it's not though. It's
Right.
just, yeah.
A lot of indie fiction is highlighting your classic virtues, heroism, courage, the family unit, and stuff that traditional media, movies, books, games, has become unable to portray well, because they've embraced the idea that the real world is pointless, nihilistic. Things that are beautiful are destined to break down. And so they must show them breaking down. Mm-hmm. And if you show something that is good and genuine and pure, then that must be destined for tragedy. The love interest has to die, that kind of thing. And I like the Iron Age in particular are abandoning that. They are people generally who have faith in their own lives. And so they portray it as important. The world is important. The things that we do are important. And I just feel that those stories mean something more just because of that. Because they aren't shooting themselves in the foot saying nothing matters, right? They're saying, no, there are things that matter.
I think I caught a video of yours that you it was about Middle-earth mixers. He had an article for the Blaze or something. And he was talking about why storytelling matters going forward, and then he kind of fumbled the point.
Yes. It was for the Blaze.
Yes, of course.
And like I have I have issues with people, conservative talking heads. Entertainment does things, stories, right? Do things on their own. You don't have to make every story into a giant big lesson. There's a strain of conservatism that believes that only things that are productive are of worth. And they're the people who say that video games, fiction, genre fiction particularly, anime, movies, that those things are not things that real men should enjoy. And it's, it's less ideal for women to enjoy them too. But like, women are measured by the same yardstick. So where Middle-earth Mixer was going with his article was saying that this story by Tolkien can warn us. But like, that's not how he started his introduction to the article. He was talking in the introduction about how fantasy and like he quoted Tolkien about fantasy and the role of fantasy. And then the conclusion of the story of the article had nothing to do with the introduction at all, and was more along the lines of we got to hold the line type things that conservatives love to hear, right? If we just dig in our heels enough, then the LGBT that will just go away, right? Like that kind of, and that's just not realistic, I guess. Whereas Tolkien, and then I would say as well, right? Like the importance and the value of fiction in our lives is to teach, if you have to make it productive, right? Is to teach values and ideals in a story form, right? Because stories stick in our heads. Jesus told stories, that's they're pictures. They help us to turn off the side of our brain that is, working overdrive, analyzing everything, and help us to envision what these ideals would look like, and then to take that back into our own lives, refreshed, energized, right? An example would be, my daughter just went to the dentist and sat in the chair for the first time. She's 3. And the hygienist tried to get her to open her mouth and count her teeth. Barely opened her mouth and was very, very stressed. And the hygienist counted her teeth and then said, I'm going to go get the dentist right away instead of cleaning her teeth first, because she thought this is going to escalate, right? She's going to become more stressed, more upset. While she was out and we were together by ourselves in the room, I talked to her about some of the stories that we've read together. I asked her, oh, and movies, right? Like the first one was Pokemon. I asked her about Pokemon. Misty is one of her favorite characters. The reason that Pokemon came up was Pokemon had been talked about in the context of a reward. She would be able to watch it during the middle of the day. And so I asked her, what would Misty do? You think that she would be scared? And she said, no. I said, do you think she would be silly? She was like, yes. She knew like, Misty and the characters in Pokemon are just silly in general. So then I grabbed for one that was a little more serious. And I said, what about Lucy from Chronicles of Narnia? It's like, she would be brave. Like, I didn't put that word in her mouth. She knew from the story that Lucy was a brave person. We talked about a couple of other ones. She really latches onto the little girls, right? And so she came out of that conversation ready to try again. She still needed a hug. She still needed help, but she did not escalate. She took the things that she'd heard from stories and was able to apply them. Like, that's super powerful. If I read her stories that were nihilistic and stupid, she wouldn't be able to do that, right? That the takeaway from those stories is not, be brave, right? The takeaway from those stories is nothing matters, so you might as well give up, right? So that is like a super specific thing that happened that was very, very story oriented. But like, we do this kind of thing in our lives all the time without even thinking about it.
Right. And I hadn't even thought about it until you started talking about your kids, but I got the Brave books, that are the stories about how to act and how to do things. And it's such a great way to like instill, like you said, instill values, instill things into your kids without it being like, I'm going to sit here and preach at you and and it's so funny because my kids, I homeschool. So my kids ask me, like, sometimes it's a stalling tactic because nobody wants to do math. And sometimes it's like, hey, we're going to eat a snack. Will you read us a Brave book while we eat the snack? And like, it's so fun. And then like, they just have these, I don't know, the kids really just take in what it means. And like, there was one with tigers and some had spots and some had stripes, and they got it into their heads that if they had spots they weren't going to win a race, so they stopped training. And so it's such an everyday life lesson that is told in such an enjoyable way that now my kids are like, I can be like, hey, do you have spots or you have stripes or does it matter? And they'll be like, no, I'll just keep working at it. I hate my math even if I'm a slow little tangent, but
No,
it's amazing.
Totally applicable, right? Because we know as parents that stories are important for teaching, but then we don't apply it to ourselves. Adults also need that coaching. We don't just grow up and just automatically no longer need truth spoken into our lives, but we're responsible for seeking it out, right? I review those kinds of books, right? And I talk about in my reviews thematic implications of things. What is this saying when it doesn't, like, you have a fantasy and it doesn't have religion at all? Like, what does that say? What about this one that has like a went to heaven moment, right? While somebody is like knocked out, right? What is that saying? It can be reassuring for people to know those kinds of things ahead of time. Like, I'm going to be going into this and I want to know, am I going to be confronted with like religious dogma that I like just disagree with?
Right. And I noticed too in your review in Anvil magazine, which I got, and I don't think I've shown this. I mean, I've shown issue 1 on stream, but I haven't the second. Okay. Also, this is not necessarily a plug for Katie, but this Okay, first one, lovely, fantastic, nothing wrong with this. This one just drips with cool. Like this is so neat. Iron Age media, there's all sorts of stuff. There's more comics in this one. There's here, hang on, flip. Just this doesn't have anything to do with anything. But when I open it up and they have impressionist comic art, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Sorry, I love that. Anyways, Katie's review, which I'm going to find. But part of your review that I noticed is that you kind of talked about the tropes in the book. Here we go.
Because I'm very pro trope.
Right. That it's like, okay, that that you talk here, epic tropes, discrimination and belonging, like this is the kind of story that you're looking at when you're approaching this book.
I'm pro trope. I like tropes. I think that when you go into a genre, you have these expectations, and those are tropes, right? Because they are done over and over, they belong in that genre, they're part of it. For example, Harry Potter really shaped the magic school genre. There are tropes that Harry Potter pulled from other places, but now like they're very, very much like you have to have stupid adults, right? Like that's one of the like less great tropes. Like boarding school as opposed to regular school, like those kinds of things.
Yeah, even to the point where I think old J.K. Rowling parodied herself when she's like, okay, so we're going to have America, and America also has a wizarding boarding school with 4 houses. I'm like, that just doesn't work in America. We don't have a history of boarding school. No, you're wrong. I'm sorry. But
then again, if you were, but Anne, if you were going to magic school, they can't have them all around. You would have to go to boarding school. Like, come on.
You have magical transportation. You could just walk. It's like now it's time to get to the fireplace for school. Like, okay, Ma.
I've seen a really, really great comic, like your traditional like four square comic, not like a American comic.
Yeah.
Where it was a student and her dad, and the student was arguing with her dad, right? Like her dad's like, it's time to go to King's Cross Station and get on the train to go to Hogwarts. And like, I know nothing about British geography, but she's like, Dad, like that would literally be out of our way.
Yeah, but it's like, no, it's like you have to go all the way from London, Southern England, to take a train to Scotland. It's like, there's a lot of England, and there's no stops on this train. Why?
It makes no sense.
Magic.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And part of like imaginative fiction is just like setting aside those and like enjoying the story. And that's totally okay. And then we can have fun talking about it, right?
Exactly. It is so fun. And I don't know if you've done it yet with your kids, but we're listening to the audiobooks of Harry Potter.
Nice.
And my kids are obsessed. Like, we cannot wait until Halloween because there are Harry Potter costumes, and like everything in our house is like magic. And I don't care because it's so much fun, and it's so fun to share it with them. Yeah. Oh, it's just been the best. And I love the tropes. I love the fact that everybody goes to King's Cross Station. I don't care that that's not how it works.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just like I don't care that in the US we shouldn't have boarding school because it's fun. Who cares? And suspend your disbelief, please.
Yeah, I can't. Not for Wizarding America. Wizarding America is
not too close.
That doesn't make. And look, I even like relatively enjoyed the first couple Fantastic Beasts movies, but I was like, this doesn't make sense. That's not. No, you just did the worst.
And especially when like America has such a rich heritage of homeschooling, it's like, what do you mean you sent them to boarding school?
Right. It's like, did you just put the wizarding capital of America in New York City? Because that's not our capital, right? And it's like, oh, and we're going to do the witch burning thing. We always do all the time, always witch burning American subplot. Why?
We didn't
In
burn
the
witches.
20s. Yeah, it's like in 1920s America, you have to A, have wand registries, and B, you can't marry muggles. What? That's not even how we work. Sorry.
Yeah, no, we
Yes.
weren't doing that in the 20s. But
Yeah.
which one was there witch burning in?
No,
I don't
that
remember that.
what's her no, that they were the one evil boarding school girl woman who was the mother of Ezra Miller, that she was in this anti-witch league and she was talking and there was like pictures that
Oh, okay. Okay, I got
It's
you.
usually referenced. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not really like the actual.
And
I got to admit, I didn't love those movies, so it's all right.
I was looking at them through nostalgia lenses, like the first one for sure, and was like,
Yeah.
this isn't quite right. This isn't like going back to Hogwarts. This is like different, but I'm okay with it. I get to see people that I recognize their name, right? Like that kind of thing.
yeah. Yeah, and I would even say the second one, I'm like, this is a very different tone shift. Okay, we're playing along. And then it's like third one, I'm like, oh gosh, guys, see, none of it together makes sense. Why?
It's funny because my husband hasn't read any of the books. But like if we take a car trip, then we'll all listen to it, whether or not he wants to, because consensus rules. But he tried to get the kids to watch Fantastic Beasts, and they just could not even care. They just like were wandering away, and because it just doesn't have the same magic that the other ones have. Sometimes that's how it works. You get the magic the one time, and then it doesn't come back. Can't recreate it.
And also to drag us back to a point. And also
sorry.
to knock it's okay. And to knock the blaze a little bit more, because that's always fun. What always gets me, and the National Review used to do this back in the day, where they would be like, Spider-Man is really a conservative movie because, with great power comes great responsibility. It's like, look, if you want to watch Spider-Man, if you want to take conservative out of it, that's good. But they'd be like, yeah, and all these rock songs are secretly conservative too. And it's just painful. And we get this a little bit. It's like, okay, Jordan Peterson, very clever man. That's good for him for explaining things from using like Pinocchio. But here's the thing, he doesn't own Pinocchio, and that is not the only meaning that you can get out of Pinocchio. And he'll reference things like, oh yeah, it's definitely like this, and Snow White is all the time like this. And like, yeah, you can draw that meaning from Snow White and you can use it to explain other things. That's fantastic. You don't actually own Snow White. And also, I like a cute story where she dances with the dwarves and they play a happy little song. Like, I like that bit, and the kid likes that bit.
Mhm.
Like, you don't need to always take a beautiful story and then sort of trap it down in whatever strictures of ideology you want. It's like, it could just be nice.
And I think that is where a lot of indies are focused right now, is just like the main point is to entertain, a good story. And if you, as a reader, pull out these themes, great, right? Some of them the author even intended, right? But like the point is not to lecture or indoctrinate or shake the reader by the shoulders. You should believe this current thing, right? Like it's only
like, that thing is wrong. It's like, okay, that thing is wrong. Gosh, gotcha.
The problem with mainstream media right now is they manipulate their viewer into either accepting their ideological premise or being the idiot or the bad guy. And what we're seeing, of course, is like Chad meme, yes, right? Like, okay, a lot of especially men are embracing that I'm the bad guy thing, and it's become part of the conservative movement. to be
Yeah.
like, well, yes, I do believe that, right? And
Right. And which is also funny because I mean, I get it because I mean, I am sitting here with Miss Deplorable Knitter who did take the name of the opposition and grab it. But
exactly.
also not all of the Chad meme things are good.
Right.
Like it's like, yeah, that is me. It's like it really shouldn't be though. Maybe
Right.
just a little bit.
And I never really meant to be Deplorable Knitter forever. It was just a whim thing, and then it stuck. So sometimes these things happen. You know what I mean?
You could have been stuck as the Ken meme forever. You're saved from that.
Right, exactly.
Right now, I've got the website. I'm still posting regularly reviews. I also do like news snippets about things that authors are doing that are of concrete relevance to readers. I'm not covering the drama, right? And are of authors that I've reviewed their stuff before. So like there's a high chance that whatever they put out is going to be of comparable quality, right? So I try to keep the focus on that, right? Like actual ways to connect readers with stuff they like. I also, sort of tangential to that, do the did this last year. This is my not for sale copy because I still haven't bothered to order actual author copies. But I did the Periapsis Christmas anthology. All of the authors in here were people that I'd reviewed before. So it's like supposed to be a similar type of product where it's like, okay, if you liked this, right, it's a short story, it doesn't take very long. If you liked it, go check out their other stuff, right? Because I've reviewed their stuff and I think it's good. We're going to be doing that again this year.
Oh, fun.
So
That's cool.
otherwise, my YouTube, Periapsis Press. David sometimes joins me and we chat about stuff. We do Lego streams. We're building Rivendell right now.
What is Rivendell?
Rivendell?
Yeah.
From the Lord of the Rings.
From the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay.
That's the elf, big,
okay.
sweeping.
Fantasy. Harry Potter is about as far as I go into that genre, and I try. My husband really likes that stuff, and I fall asleep every time. It doesn't matter. So I'm sorry.
Rivendell. This is Rivendell as envisioned by like Peter Jackson, right? And not the homely house. Like, that's a very, very different feel from like Tolkien's from his drawings idea of where Elrond lived. But
it's fun though.
We love it anyway, right?
Sounds cool. So that sounds awesome. So people can check you out on your YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm really interested because even though I said that this isn't like my wheelhouse, if it's a good book, I love to read. So I would give a new author a chance. But like you said, it's scary to be like, nobody knows who this is. Is it going to be crap? Am I wasting my money? So
right.
That's awesome that you have a resource for that.
Yeah. Yep. And I wanted it for myself. So, and I had a blog back in the day, and I did, your generic reactions to movies and TV shows and whatever I was reading at the time. And it, like, my aunt read it every time I posted. But it was like, it wore me out.
Aunt.
It wore me out. It was like I had to think up a way to talk about my opinion about stuff that I was either didn't care about or actively disliked. And this has been so much more fun. And it's really actually been testing me as a writer, especially at first. Now I'm in a zone, right? But it's so easy to talk about what you disliked. You do it all the time about everything in your life. Someone asks you, what do you think about this movie? And you're like, well, it was good, but I didn't like this, right? It's really easy to talk about that kind of stuff. It's a lot harder to talk about what did you like and why did you like it? And right. So that's been something I've had to work on, build up that skill.
It's a skill that is hard. I actually have a kid that's very pessimistic, and so I try to, like, every day, like, what was your favorite part of today, just to kind of like help the mindset. But I gotta tell you, my husband was dancing on my last nerve today, and so every time I started to think something bad, I actually said a prayer, and I was like, Jesus, thank you for this man, even though I want to throttle him. But seriously, like, I think he woke up on the wrong side of the bed and I couldn't take it. And so I started trying to be thankful for him, even though it's not how I was feeling. And it's hard. It is hard to do. So I give you a lot of credit for that.
Well, and that mindset, that feeling, we are really blessed as Christians and believers because we are instructed in a lot of mechanisms for fighting that kind of mindset, right? Gratitude, prayer, talking with one another, reading the word. Fiction can do similar things for people. I always say, right, like, I'm a believer. I believe that you should be reading the Bible. I also believe you should be reading fiction. And that if you're reading the right kinds of stories, they can help you to look at the world differently. They can help you to not like wallow in those sort of negative emotions. And that's really, really helpful for people who don't have like the strategies as like I'm not just saying like people who don't believe, because believers can really benefit from this too, but who need something different, pull your brain out of the world for a little while, reset, come back, that kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of a positive coping mechanism of it's like, and I'm going to read this for a while. I'm going to walk away from my problems for a bit and everything's going to be okay. And then we're going to come back and then we're going to, do this with a fresh mind.
Yeah. Escapism, like, it is important. It's not like I'm escaping my responsibilities. I'm leaving them. I am escaping them temporarily, right? And I'm going to come back. And the things that I have consumed in the meantime should equip me to tackle those well. That's good fiction, right? And I feel like the indies are doing that and TradPub isn't, for sure.
That's true. I mean, you think about it, you want to have something that's going to edify you. You don't want something that's going to make you sadder and more depressed. And I mean, don't get me wrong, in high school, I was the kid that was reading all those books, kids like who were going to die, and I read all of them. So like, there's a time and place for different things, but yeah, it should be edifying. And well,
even sad stories and horror can be edifying, right?
Right.
The point isn't to only read happy, cheerful, right? But to be reading stuff that is speaking truths that will be rejuvenating and giving strength rather than taking it, right?
Right. And I would say too that there's a lot of stories that's like, okay, I don't like unhappy endings. I'm that guy. I'll say that. But there is a difference in a story from, and then everybody dies, to, yes, the hero dies, but like there was some positive progress made in the book. Mm-hmm. Like there's plot relevance, there's a bigger picture here, and the hero was a part of it. There's all of that too. It's like, nah, man, he's dead. It sucks. Sorry.
Yeah.
So that kind
or saying like the hero dies and everything that he did comes to nothing, right? No one wants to read that. I mean, obviously some people want to read it because that's why they keep publishing it, I assume, right?
Sorry, this is just totally random. It reminds me, I was watching Bright Star, which is a movie about John Keats. Anyways, that spoiler, he dies at 27. That's the movie. And It's and I love it. It's probably my only favorite crying movie. That's not really my genre, but I was watching the DVD and it was like 6 ads. And it was like, here's a dog, it dies. And then the next one was this girl hits her head on the ice and now she's blind, but she's going to learn to skate again. Next one, my son has this disease and it's incurable, but I'm going to find a cure and I need money. I'm like, what is this genre? It's specifically the hey, do you feel like you need to cry? Here's a film for that genre.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know it went this deep. Sorry.
There's a place for everything. There really is. Now you've got me trying to remember the book that I read that I bawled my eyes out and it was so wonderful. Can't think of it though. Had a dog in it, for sure.
Oh gosh, that dog's
What have I
so
told-
dead.
Where did you read it, in elementary school or middle school?
I didn't read it in elementary or middle school. Geez, that's gonna bug me. I'll tell you later.
Top of my head, Old Yeller, Where the Red Fern
No.
Grows.
No. It's got
Bridge to Terabithia.
Milo
it's so
Ventimiglia
bad.
was in Milo Ventimiglia was in the movie and he's a race car driver. No,
In the
nothing?
movie?
Yeah.
I got nothing.
I will tell Anne and she'll tell you because it's gonna come to me the minute we get off. But yeah, I don't know. I guess sometimes you still need a good cry. You know, it's okay.
Yep.
But that one had a great cry and it had a great story. It wasn't just, depressing, like you said.
or crying for the sake of making you feel like it matters, like Bridge to Terabithia.
Gosh, I hated that.
I don't remember
I
that
used to
one.
read that one. So Would you
I
like
have
the-
it. I have it
Yeah.
on my shelf. I'll go read it now. So thanks.
oh, if you
Be
want,
prepared to
gonna-
at the
gonna
end be
cry?
like, why did I read this?
yeah, that was my.
I feel something. Thank you for that question. Maybe.
What was the point there? You strung me along. You strung me along a lot.
Oh my gosh. So
We're
anyway,
building, we're building our own library because the public library is basically an enemy institution at this point. There are some
public libraries so bad.
like every once in a while in a town there's a good one, but generally
I think
so-
someone new took over our library because there's been a lot less boys in skirts on the cover lately. So I'm pretty stoked about that. I won't lie. Because you go into the kids section and there's a boy wearing this like princess dress, and I'm like, the kids will be like, "Oh, what's this story?" I'll be like, "We're not reading it, so don't worry about
touch it, don't go
it.
near it, don't look at it."
We're not checking it out because we don't want them to know that. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
we don't
yeah.
want them to think we like it.
I
So anyway, yes.
we were going through the secondhand store. I think it was just Goodwill, and we were looking through books, and I picked up, and I was like, "Oh, here's Bridge to Terabithia." My husband was like, "No, we're not owning that book."
It's kind of funny.
It's like if I had the last library in the whole world, it would not make it. I'm sorry, guys. I just no, just out.
Why would we do that to our children?
Like it's important
Really, it's
cultural
that bad?
context. I'm sure some of the other books reference Bridge to Terabithia, but
Yeah, the girl
I
dies.
don't.
Spoiler alert: the girl dies. So
But I told you I read all the things where people died. That's why it didn't make that big of an impression on me because it was in my wheelhouse. I don't know.
the entire book is a boy meeting his neighbor girl, going across a creek, and creating like this whole imaginative.
Oh, I do remember it.
And then she dies.
Yes, I remember it now.
Yay! Dun dun dun! Life lessons learned. Don't remember what they are, but somehow it mattered enough to find it in every school ever.
sometimes your friend dies, and you know what, kiddo? Bummer. Like, well, thanks. I need to learn that one.
Wow.
Right? Like it's not
And-
like she died at the beginning. No, like she dies at the end, and like it's like that's it.
I guess there's nothing more now that she's dead. We could make some new friends, maybe. Maybe not. I don't know.
Nope.
Doesn't go farther.
No more friends. You
No.
blew it.
But the
Any
thing is,
chance?
I don't know if they made a sequel. I hope they didn't, because you'd be like, is his second friend going to die? Is this just like a tragic, like, oh no, did he get a dog? Like,
That's what I was about to say.
it's not going to end well.
No,
You
the second one is about when he's grown up and jaded, and he gets taught a lesson by a small child. I'm making this up. I'm not saying that this is actually.
The small child teaches him the importance of friendship
Yeah,
right before he gets hit by a bus.
And
This doesn't work out. Sorry.
wow. I think we're devolving. So
Probably, yes, a little bit.
anything else that we need to mention or
Okay.
no?
Probably one thing that I thought of when you were talking about like your kids really enjoying like the magic of Hogwarts and like pretending, and kind of a segue, because I do review sci-fi and fantasy, right? And a lot of the authors are Christian themselves, write characters that are Christian or have Christian values, right? A common concern is the theological aspect of portraying religious things in a fantasy or fantastical setting, because generally, right, the theology is going to be not right, and people who care about that kind of thing worry about that being a problem. And my response would be the same way that kids who are enjoying Harry Potter are enjoying the magic of it and knowing that it's not true. Like true is not the right word there. They know that it's not real in that way. When we as adults are reading something that has religious themes, that has theology that's not right, or is like twisted a little bit to make it interesting, right? There's a lot of Gnosticism in sci-fi fantasy, right? Like lower gods and stuff. That's all pretend, right? That is not like the true stuff that you're supposed to be taking away from the story. The true things that you're supposed to be taking away from the story are things like there is a God, there is a judge, there is a savior. Like those things are things that are fulfilled by archetypes. And then like values like bravery, honesty, those kinds of things. What you should be doing is reading your Bible for theology. So I would say don't worry about that kind of stuff, because I know that people who feel that, theology is important can come to that with a little bit of concern and trepidation.
Right. And I would say too, I mean, that you can have positive Christian themes in a work of fantasy that is not necessarily theological. I mean, I think that was probably where Tolkien was on it. Or you could have very anti-Christian themes in a book that is also fantasy. You have kind of Golden Compass, and you have that kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. So while it is possible to have that, I mean, I would say with Harry Potter specifically, even though there was, a big fuss of it at the time, I think in the original books, she was very good with that. With the Dursleys did not hate magic because they were like religious or anything. They hated magic because they hated anything that was different from them, and they were horrible people. Like, great way to handle it. When they had witch burnings in the original, it was sort of a laughed about thing that did happen, but it was a part of the magical history. They mentioned holidays, Christmas and Easter, but they never went further. They never, this is a thing that is part of this world because that is a thing that is a normal thing. We are not denying anything, but we're also not getting into it. And that's okay. Everyone is either magic from birth or they're not. And that's just how things are. And we're not going deeper, and we're moving along.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I said, we homeschool and we attend a Christian co-op. And so my kids are super into Harry Potter, but also we have a lot of people around us who are of the mindset that it's evil because it's magic. And I have a kid that's going to be 11 next year, and I know that they secretly hope that they're going to get a Hogwarts letter. But I talk all the time about how, it's fake. Like, I just straight up, like, it's not real. Sorry, guys. Because it's great and super fun, but we can't go around like, I went to a private Christian school. That's where I graduated from. And that's when I was in high school when Harry Potter came out. And it was this huge, like, oh my God, everybody's going to be like worshiping Satan because of this magic. And like, it's okay to pretend. It's okay. It's normal. Yeah. And it's fun. And that's okay. So right. Anyway.
Waving around a stick pretending it's a sword doesn't make you a knight. Waving it around pretending that it shoots sparks doesn't make you a wizard, right? Like, it's not a big deal. And it's not like they were like spell books that laid out like how to commune with demons or whatever. Like, that's just not the kind of magic that we're talking here. It's there is definitely a more like darker type of fiction that kids could get into that would be bad for them. Mm-hmm. Not all of that has magic in it. There are bad books that are just bad because of what, like, the values and the things that they teach that are in direct opposition to the things that we believe are true, that are perfectly sanitized, right? And I would point to things that, again, like archetypes, right? And values that Harry Potter does have in it that are good and of value. And then I would talk to my kids about lying and disobeying.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in there. But yeah, I just think that, I'm not even gonna go there. But yeah, I agree with you.
There's a line between, okay, kids, this book isn't good for you, but you don't want to fall into the, a lot of people joke about the satanic panic with D&D. It's like, it's okay. Actually, we're fine. That there has to be room for imagination here, without going totally, I don't even know how to say. Don't worry about D&D. You're probably good.
Yeah. I feel like, for my analogy, Harry Potter's a good one, because anyone who would not be okay with Harry Potter would probably also not be okay with false theology. Right? Like, one thing that people often forget, especially like in our modern world, imaginative fiction has been around a lot longer than quote unquote nonfiction. It's just the way things are. We have told, for centuries, we've told imaginative stories, epics that, like, Beowulf did not actually kill a dragon. Like, if he did, that would be something fantastical that we really need to re-examine what we think about the world, right? Our ancestors, right, did not write nonfiction the way that we conceptualize it. And that's okay. It's like the things that they were teaching and passing down did not have to do with this happened on this date and this happened on this date. They were bigger ideas.
We know where to find you, check you out, read your reviews, write your own reviews. Fantastic.
Please write your own reviews.
Very cool. No, but it's been a lot of fun talking to you, because
you guys too.
There's so much going on in the conservative world right now, and not even necessarily conservative, but we've had a few comic book authors on talk about what they're doing, and it's just really cool to see these different people who are kind of trying to build the same community that Anne and I have been striving to build in the knitting world. So it's really it's enlightening. It's a lot of fun. Yes, Anne.
No, I was gonna say, and also too, that we have, like like Katie said, that we have a certain group of people who are criticizing bad stuff. And again, totally criticize bad stuff. That's awesome. But the idea that, okay, there are other people who are trying to build good stuff. That's fantastic. But each and every one of us can help build the good stuff, even if we're not building it ourselves, by just, not even, like it's the like, comment, and subscribe thing. It's very trite, but also it actually does help. And when you get the emails from companies saying, please leave a review to help, it's like, no, it really does. If you read a book, review a book, that's extremely helpful. And, tell other people it's very helpful with these new small voices.
Yeah. And I would say, don't feel like you have to write a ton. Just say that you liked it. If you can't like meet the minimum word requirement, right? Just leave a rating. Like that's enough. You're going to be helping another reader. And that's my focus because I'm a reader. Like all of the author types are like, help me out. And I'm like, help me out, right? Help me find the stuff that's good.
Yep, exactly. So very cool. So people can find you on, I can't remember how to say it.
Periapsispress.com.
Periapsispress.com. Excellent. And then you're on YouTube and anywhere else they should look for you?
I'm on Twitter at redhedgedragon.
Okay.
And Instagram.
What? Oh,
And
and
Instagram.
Instagram. Yes. Yep. I
Cool.
need to post there more, but yeah.
Cool. Awesome. And guys, don't forget to check out Chicken Lady Fiber Arts. You can win a skein of Marvelous, which I am not holding. This is Blackety Black, but
I'm holding Marvelous. There we go.
You can use the code PIZZA20 PIK for 20% off of your Chicken Lady order. And don't forget to sign up for her newsletter, because if you do, she sends you a couple emails a month, and sometimes you get like special codes. So it's always fun. And like Ann said, like, comment, subscribe, follow Katie, like, comment, and subscribe over there. Share a review of a book that you've enjoyed. Help us out. And thanks for joining us today.